Welcome and thanks for joining us, both those joining virtually and those in person today. As the time is now 10:01 a.m., we will now start the broadcast for our online attendees. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been informed that there is a quorum present, and at this time I declare the extraordinary general meeting of Imagion Biosystems Limited open and welcome you to this physical and virtual meeting this morning. My name is Bob Proulx, the chairman of Imagion Biosystems, and I would like to thank you for your interest in and support of the company. Although I can't be in Australia at this time around, I'm delighted to join my fellow directors and colleagues to host this meeting as a hybrid forum. Our EGM is being held on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I wish to acknowledge them as traditional owners. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. I would now like to introduce the other members of the board, Mark Van Asten, Jovanka Naumoska, and David Ludvigson. Joining me online, Mike Harsh is having some technical difficulties, but he will try to join. And Diane Angus, who is in person in Melbourne. Also joining us virtually is our CEO, Dr. Isaac Wright, while our CFO and company secretary, Geoff Hollis, is present in Melbourne. Given this is again a hybrid meeting, I just want to run over some housekeeping matters before we commence the formal meeting. At this meeting, there will be 6 items of business, including 6 resolutions. Each resolution will be proposed and voted on as a simple majority to be carried, except for item 6, that is resolution 6, which is a special resolution. In order for resolution 6 to be passed, at least 75% of votes validly cast by shareholders on the resolutions must be in favor. Today's meeting is being held physically in Melbourne and online via the Lumi platform. This allows shareholders, proxies, and guests to attend the meeting either physically or virtually. All attendees can watch a live broadcast of the meeting. In addition, shareholders and proxies have the ability to ask questions and submit votes. Online attendees can submit questions at any time. To ask a written question, select the messaging tab at the top of the Lumi platform. Type your question in the box towards the top of the page and press the arrow symbol to send. A copy of your submitted questions, along with any written responses from our meeting team, can be viewed by selecting My Messages. To ask your question verbally, pause the broadcast on the Lumi platform and then click on the Request to Speak button. The audio questions interface will be displayed. You'll be prompted to confirm your name and enter the topic of your question. Submit your request and follow the instructions to allow access to your microphone and connect to the queue. Please note that while you submit questions, you can submit questions starting now. I will not address them until the relevant time in the meeting. I will also address any questions from those physically in attendance. Please also note that your questions may be moderated, or if we receive multiple questions on one topic, they may be combined together. Finally, due to time constraints, we may run out of time to answer all of your questions. If this happens, we will answer them in due course. Voting today will be conducted by way of a poll on all items of business. In order to provide you with enough time to vote, I will shortly open voting for all resolutions. At that time, if you are eligible to vote at this meeting, a new voting tab will appear. Selecting this tab will bring up a list of resolutions and present you with voting options. To cast your vote, simply select one of the options. There's no need to hit a submit button or an enter button, as the vote is automatically recorded. You do, however, have the ability to change your vote up until the time I declare voting closed. With that, I now declare voting open on all items of business. The voting tab will soon appear on your screen. Please submit your votes at any time. I will give you a warning before I move to close voting. At this time, I'd like to make a few opening remarks. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that this is Dr. Bright's first shareholder meeting since joining us mid-year as CEO, and we are pleased to welcome him to our shareholder community. As everyone knows, the capital markets have been difficult this year, but the company, with Dr. Bright's leadership, has continued to make progress despite the market challenges. Management, in cooperation with the board, has taken active steps to maintain the momentum of the company while operating with fiscal constraints. All the resolutions being put before our shareholders today relate to exercising fiscal prudence while positioning the company to be able to adequately fund and manage the business going forward. We appreciate our shareholders' consideration of these resolutions and your support for our business. And now I'd like to invite Dr. Bright to provide an update on recent business activities and our vision for future success.
Thanks, Bob. Next slide, please. So I'm happy to share with all of our shareholder communities a bit of what we've been sharing with prospective new investors. As you'll see, these are all pages from our investor deck. In summary, what we have created at Imagion is the world's first mover to enable molecular MRI. And we've done this with a novel platform that we call MagSense, which allows physicians for the first time to visualize distinctly tumors and metastases using basic MRI instruments that are globally available. We've advanced our lead program, MagSense HER2 imaging agent, through a phase 1 study at 4 sites in Australia and announced results, top-line results earlier last month. And going forward, we have a number of compelling and late-stage MagSense programs within our pipeline that will continue to advance. Overall, Imagion is positioned as, again, the global first mover that can now change the way we look at cancer by using MRI to magnetically tag tumors specifically. Next slide. Our MagSense HER2 imaging agent is indicated for detection of nodal metastases in HER2-positive breast cancer. And what you see on the right is a glimpse of what our radiologists see when they read the scans of patients that have been dosed with our drug. What you'll notice is on the post-dose image in the bottom panel, large darkening cortical mass that turns into a speckling collection as you move through the hilum of that axillary lymph node that's highlighted. This is the hallmark that indicates we have a tumor that's invaded that lymph node and allows radiologists now for the first time non-invasively to definitively call metastatic disease relative to normal lymphatic drainage. We've completed 13 patients in this phase 1 study at 4 sites, and all of them reported that the drug was well tolerated without any serious drug-related adverse events. We also took the chance to evaluate exploratory endpoints, characterize what we could about how the drug performed. And in these 13 patients, we wound up with 8 patients that gave us interpretable MRI data. The other 5 had common MRI susceptibility failures, or the cancer was so invasive that it disrupted normal lymphatic drainage so that the drug could not get to the lymph nodes that we scanned. Of the 8 interpretable patients, though, we were able to identify with full concordance between blinded radiologist interpretation and the surgical pathology that was removed from these patients, both benign and malignant nodes in 7 out of 8 patients. Now, this was not a statistically powered study to evaluate the clinical performance, but it sure is a compelling trend that shows we have a great opportunity to now enable molecular MRI again for the first time in the world. Next slide. Importantly, this drug allows physicians not only to call metastatic disease, as you just saw, but also to identify normal lymphatic drainage and healthy immunology that's happening within the lymph nodes. What you'll see in the top 2 panels are before our MagSense HER2 imaging agent is dosed in any of these patients. And again, you'll see in both of these patients axillary lymph nodes that radiologists would identify as large, oddly shaped, maybe fluid surrounding it, something that warrants more investigation, maybe a biopsy, but something that would be invasive and more costly and time-consuming for the healthcare system and for these patients that are desperately in need of getting the tumors out and getting the tumors treated to manage their disease and improve their outcome. With MagSense HER2 imaging agents, what you see in the post-dose panels on the bottom is on the bottom left, you have a lymphatic system that has drained the drug directly to the lymph node, and the entire lymph node has homogeneously become very blackened. This is a hallmark of normal lymphatic drainage and the normal process of immunology where macrophages and other antigen-presenting cells are consuming the drug and presenting it throughout the germinal centers in the lymph nodes that distributes this blackening of the lymph node throughout. And we have a very clear sense then that's a normal lymph node. On the bottom right, this is a distinct pattern where, again, you see the cortical darkening around the top of the node and then a speckling throughout the hilum. This is, again, pathognomonic that indicates we have tumor that's invaded this lymph node. And again, it's the first time now physicians can see and make that distinction between metastatic disease and benign disease in these patients without any exposure to ionizing radiation and with a simple MRI scan. Next slide. We believe that we have a really unique opportunity with a market that's pretty highly consolidated, but very active for deal making. This is informing the new strategy that we've announced early last month, where we are focused on discovery and development of MagSense products and rapid collaboration and partnership to enable continued advancement of the technology and access to novel MagSense drugs. GE, Bayer, and Bracco dominate this market with a total of 75% of the revenue that's delivered. Importantly, this is a space that for actually almost 7 years now, the FDA has been pushing for the industry to get away from gadolinium-based contrast agents. These are known to cause some incidents of renal cellular toxicity, even renal failure. And we have a unique platform within MagSense, leveraging our super paramagnetic iron oxide nanoparticles that are safe and are really a fantastic alternative to gadolinium for clear visualization in MRI scans without any exposure to renal toxicity. Importantly, we see this as a great step to now redefine the category of molecular imaging, where we can push molecular MRI to the state of the art. MRI is already more than 4 times the global footprint installed base of PET scanners, which is the leading modality for molecular imaging right now. Importantly, the drugs that are delivered for PET scanning include a number of ionizing radiation isotopes, which are very hard to manage throughout the supply chain and very hard to manage through clinical implementation. So we see a great opportunity to drive forward our differentiated MagSense platform for MRI, molecular MRI, which should become the mainstay in molecular imaging going forward. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, in this space, we are playing with some world-class companies. We are definitely the David amongst the Goliaths in this space, which is exciting because we have something none of them do. We're the first mover to deliver molecular MRI. And so though we're young, we're mighty with a differentiated capability amongst this competitive landscape. And again, this is a landscape where the notion of innovation is not quite the level of science that we've delivered in MagSense and the platform. And going forward, we'll have an opportunity to prove that in partnership, likely with some of these players or some spec pharma companies that compete. All told, we're in a very promising position looking at an opportunity to disrupt this landscape for MRI contrast agents, driving MRI contrast to molecularly tagged tumor cells going forward. Next slide. So our business model now is focused explicitly on MagSense partnerships, where the broad portfolio of MagSense products that we've started to develop will be driven forward through out-license and collaboration efforts. We have a core competency in discovery and development of these drugs. We recognize that broadly throughout the biotechnology ecosystem, collaboration means the world. You look at where biotechnology global incumbents are with regard to their pipeline assets. A number of them are in-licensed or bought through M&A. We see the opportunity to start to build a cadence of partnerships as seminal to building value as we progress with the company. These deals are not always massive right up front, but they're meaningful for companies that are young and agile and disruptive, like Imagion. And we look at the types of structures that will apply here. We expect to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, low millions in the upfront opportunities with milestones that will register on clinical development as well as commercialization and royalty rates that can get into the double digits. Importantly, again, MagSense is disruptive, enabling for the first time molecular MRI, whether that's for primary diagnostic applications, for primary staging and treatment planning, or for companion diagnostics in our most recently announced program with Prestige Biopharma, targeting pancreatic cancer. So we're really thrilled with where we've positioned MagSense. And we are out to market now with our first collaboration candidate, MagSense HER2 imaging agent, where again, we've demonstrated really compelling safety and very promising preliminary evidence of its performance, enabling the differentiation between metastatic disease and benign nodes in HER2 positive breast cancer patients. Next slide. We've taken advantage of the fact that MagSense is built on superparamagnetic iron oxide nanoparticles. The nanoparticle business enables a number of other biomedical applications, including hyperthermic ablation of solid tumor tissue, as we've partnered with the Israeli startup partner NuPhase, which is listed there, and another application in the animal health vaccine business that's yet to be announced, but we're working on an agreement that we expect to announce soon. Most importantly, we build on top of the superparamagnetic iron oxide nanoparticles the entire MagSense suite, where we're able to apply differentiated coatings and targeting moieties that give us a range of applications to attack solid tumors and to make MRI more powerful. The MagSense HER2 imaging agent is our first and flagship program, where again, we've completed phase 1 and are out to find partnerships in the immediate future. Behind that, we have a very compelling program targeting ovarian cancer, which uses the folate molecule to drive binding to the folate receptor alpha, which is overexpressed on more than 90% of ovarian cancers. Our program targeting prostate cancer leverages PSMA, which is a common target for many of the prostate PET imaging agents as well. We'll have advantages and complementarity there, we think, because MRI is positioned as the best soft tissue resolution imaging modality for most solid tumors around the world. So we're excited about our positioning there. And of course, as I mentioned, we recently announced in August our partnership with Prestige Biopharma focused on pancreatic cancer, where we've completed a lot of the discovery work and have some work to do as we continue to advance, but we expect we'll announce some progress on that program next year as well. Finally, we have a vascular imaging agent, which again has advanced through in vivo studies and will be eligible for partnering shortly. This entire pipeline is something that we can build in a very capital efficient way upon. We'll have opportunities to identify new targets and drive discovery and development programs in partnerships with numerous entities, whether they're imaging leaders now, contrast agent companies already, or specialty pharma players, biotechnology companies that want to move into companion diagnostics, leveraging the MagSense platform. So this is really a compelling platform and a lot of value that we can build upon. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Geoff, for any further comments or questions.
So thanks for sharing all that with our shareholders, Isaac. I think that's it's nice to see the updated deck, and I'm sure they appreciate that. With that, I'd like to move on to the next slide for our first item, Resolution 1. Thank you. The election of Dr. Isaac Bright as a director. Item 1 is to consider, and if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purposes of Clause 14.2ai of the company's constitution, and for all other purposes, Dr. Isaac Bright being eligible, being elected as a director of the company. The directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution. I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen. Are there any questions or comments in relation to item 1 from the room?
No, there are, Bob.
And any other questions, Geoff, coming in online?
No, there aren't in relation to this resolution.
Okay. So now I remind you to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 1 concerning the election of Dr. Bright as a director. And we'll move to item 2. The resolution is the consolidation of capital of the company. Item 2 is to consider, and if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purposes of Section 254H of the Corporations Act of 2001, ASX listing rules 7.20 and 7.22, and for all other purposes, the issued capital of the company being consolidated on the basis that every 40 shares on issue will be consolidated into one share, and where this consolidation results in a fraction of a share, the company be authorized to round that fraction up to the nearest whole share, with the consolidation to take effect in accordance with the timetable and otherwise on the terms and conditions described in the explanatory memorandum accompanying this notice. The company currently has a large number of shares on issue, being over 1.3 billion shares as of the date of this notice. The consolidation will result in a more appropriate and effective capital structure for the company and is intended to result in a share price more appealing to a wider range of strategic partnerships and investments, including in the US. A share consolidation can also potentially reduce share price volatility due to the resulting reduction in the number of shares traded. The potential reduction in share price volatility and the number of shares traded can also result in the potential to reduce liquidity. The board believes that the consolidation of the company's capital is in the best interest of shareholders. The consolidation will theoretically increase Imagion's share price at the time that it takes effect by a factor of 40, subject to prevailing market conditions. It will also reduce the administrative burden, cost, and complexity of administering a capital base, which currently has over 1 billion ordinary shares on issue. And the directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution. I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen, and ask if there are any questions or comments in relation to item 2 from the room. There being no questions,
Yeah, Bob,
Mr. Hollis.
There's one online question. It's just a question, regarding the consolidation, how it impacts the current convertible note facility we have with Mercer, and any pricing limits they have within their deal. And I can confirm that all of those are adjusted to reflect to ensure that arrangement maintains parity with what's happening to other shareholders, i.e. being increased by a volume of 40. So that's the only question. And
right.
That's
so for clarity, all open shares and all terms related to the Mercer are affected in the same way as the current ordinary shares in the consolidation.
Just one other question has come through. Look, one shareholder has sort of raised the question that do we think that the 40 to 1 is quite an aggressive proposal? Will it have an impact on the share price? I think you've touched on that, Bob. I might ask Isaac. Isaac, you've been pounding the pavement in New York and Hong Kong recently. Maybe just a very brief colour on why we felt it's important to do this.
Sure. So, one of the things that I really want to make sure we have opportunities to capitalize on is the differentiated brand we'll build because our technology is differentiated. Imagion is going to be known as a global leader enabling a molecular MRI for the first time. And coming with that perception and partnership positioning, part of what we'll want to focus on is not being a penny stock, having a sense of higher quality and more value to unlock as we build the company and retire risk with our drug portfolio. So the conversations I've been having from both an investor perspective and a partnership perspective have hinted towards the notion that, people look and learn about our company and the history, and it's something that's surprising to see so many shares outstanding and a stock price that remains, around a penny. So we'll be excited to have opportunities to get out of that penny stock category, if you will, and build up from there with a number of compelling opportunities that are coming to the fore.
Thanks, Isaac. I confirm there's no other questions, Bob.
Thanks, Geoff. Thanks, Isaac. Appreciate that. I now remind attendees to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 2 concerning the consolidation of capital of the company. We can move to item 3, which is resolution 3, which is approval of the future issue of subsequent tranche convertible notes and subsequent tranche options to Mercer Street Global Opportunity Fund. Item 3 is to consider and if thought fit to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 7.1 and for all other purposes and for a period of 3 months from the date of this meeting, approval is given for the issue of up to 12,650,000 convertible notes and up to 690 million options in the company, subject to adjustment if the consolidation is approved under Resolution 2, to Mercer Street Global Opportunity Fund, LLC, on the terms and conditions more particularly described in the explanatory memorandum accompanying this notice. There is a voting exclusion on this resolution. Mercer Street Global Opportunities Fund or their associates must not vote on this resolution. Any funds raised under this facility will be utilized to continue preparing the company's MagSense HER2 breast cancer imaging agent for the next phase of clinical development, including submission of an IND with the US FDA in 2024. However, the company does not anticipate fully utilizing this facility. The directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution, and I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen. Are there any questions or comments in relation to item 3 from within the room?
No, Bob, there aren't.
And is any online?
No, there aren't.
Okay. Thank you. And so now I remind you to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 3 concerning the approval of the future issue of subsequent tranche convertible notes and subsequent tranche options to Mercer Street Global Opportunity Fund. Item 4, please. Resolution 4, the approval of the issue of options to directors. Item 4 is to consider, and if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 10.14, and for all other purposes, approval is given for the issue of 19,500,000 options, subject to adjustment if the consolidation is approved under Resolution 2, to the directors of the company under the Employee Incentive Plan, on the terms and conditions more particularly described in the explanatory memorandum accompanying this notice. There's a voting exclusion on this resolution. Any directors or their associates must not vote on this resolution. The proposed issue of options will inform an important part of the directors' remuneration package. To preserve cash resources of the company, the directors have not received a remuneration increase since 1 July 2021. However, consistent with incentivizing performance, keeping with industry benchmarks in awarding remuneration, and importantly, aligning director and shareholder interests, the company proposes the issue of options to directors that includes the setting of escalating share price targets as hurdles. Accordingly, only upon the achievement of substantial improvement in share price will the options be realized. The directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution, and I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen. Are there any questions or comments in relation to item 4 from within the room or online?
No, Bob, there are none.
Thank you, Geoff. And again, I now remind you to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 4 concerning the approval of issue of options to directors. Please move on to item 5. Resolution 5 is approval of the issue of options to Dr. Isaac Bright. Item 5 is to consider, and if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. That, subject to the passing of Resolution 1, for the purposes of ASX Listing Rule 10.14, and for all other purposes, approval is given for the issue of 45 million options, subject to the adjustment if the consolidation is approved under Resolution 2, to Dr. Isaac Bright under the Employee Incentive Plan, on the terms and conditions more particularly described in the explanatory memorandum accompanying this notice. There's a voting exclusion on this resolution. Dr. Bright or their associates must not vote on this resolution. The directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution, and I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen. Are there any questions or comments in relation to item 5 from within the room or online?
No, there aren't, Bob.
Thank you, Geoff. And again, I now remind you to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 5 concerning the approval of the issue of options to Dr. Isaac Bright. Item 6, please. Thank you. Resolution 6, the adoption of a new constitution. Item 6 is to consider and, if thought fit, to pass the following resolution as a special resolution. That for the purposes of Section 136, subsection 2 of the Corporations Act, and for all other purposes, Clause 23.6D of the company's constitution is amended by deleting the figures 10% and replacing them with 15%, as further detailed in the explanatory memorandum accompanying this notice. Item 6 is a special resolution. Accordingly, at least 75% of votes cast by shareholders present and eligible to vote, in person or by proxy, at the meeting must be in favor of this resolution for it to be passed. Increasing the issue cap percentage of the employee incentive plan from 10% to 15% will enable the company to effectively incentivize, align, and retain its directors, executives, and employees, which play a key role in delivering shareholder value. The directors of the company recommend that shareholders vote in favor of this resolution. I report that the valid proxies received in advance of the meeting are displayed on the screen and ask if there are any questions or comments from within the room or are coming in from online.
No, there are no questions.
Thank you, Geoff. And again, I now remind you to register your online vote either for or against in relation to item 6 concerning the adoption of a new constitution. Last slide. That brings us to the end of our formal business. I now ask you to complete your voting paper and to place it in one of the ballot boxes. And for those joining us virtually, please note that online voting will remain open for a further 2 minutes, and I will then formally close the meeting. The results of the poll will be notified to the ASX and put on the company's website later today. Are there any further questions from those in the room? And are there further questions that have come in online?
No, there aren't any further questions, Bob.
Okay. Well, we have about another minute to wait for the polling to close, so I'll just make a small closing remark. Very appreciative of our shareholders participating in the meeting and the support they're showing for the company, and very enthusiastic about Dr. Bright's leadership and what he's been doing for the company. Been on the road a lot. He's making good progress with our ability to be in touch with prospective partners, as we've talked about for a long time, and with the proof that we're getting from our clinical studies and the work that the team is doing under his leadership to develop the pipeline further, we're very optimistic about where this will lead for the company. And so we're, again, very much appreciate shareholders and their support. And with that, I'll confirm that voting is now closed, and thank everyone and all the shareholders for their support. And the meeting is now closed.